Earable.
Hey everybody, welcome to a Common Censored live stream. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. We love you people. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna go. So okay. I gotta go. Okay, click go live on Rockfin. I always forget, which is why
he always tells me, remind me to go live on Rockfin. Yes. So here I am. It's the button that says go live.
I'm aware.
Okay.
All right. Do we have to be so much like Car Talk?
Oh my God, I loved Car Talk. That was such a great show.
I think we're live. I'm hoping we're live on Rockfin as well. All right, welcome, folks. Please throw your comments in there. Throw your ideas for topics. We got some stuff to talk about here. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into the COVID-19 bill some more. We're going to get into a certain area of the country getting rid of cash bail, which should be illegal. We got a lot going on. And thank you, Flash Flood, for the Car Talk shout out. You appreciated the Car Talk shout
also,
out.
Frank, now I really want some chips.
It's actually I'm not pronouncing it right. I'm saying Car Talk. It's Car Talk. Car.
Oh my God, that show was so phenomenal. I actually learned a lot about cars too. I think I was able to suss out an issue with my 1998 Nissan Sentra. Thanks to Car Talk.
There you go. Hi, Susan from Seattle. Hi, John Darwin. We will be highlighting your comments. We will be chatting with you, dealing with topics you throw out there. And for those of you who are just joining, the other thing we do, for those of you, everyone's just joining, but for those of you new to this, to what we do, is we take donations via the Super Chat or on Rockfin or on Venmo, and all of those go to a great cause. And the last couple of times, that great cause has been you. It's been those of you out there who have need, who are struggling, who could use, $100 or something to help you get to the next paycheck. And I'm going to read some of the thank yous from people from your donations last week who benefited from your donations. It's the thank yous are incredible. And thank you guys for making it all possible. So.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all. This has been a really solid idea that you had, Lee. To have these donations kind of go back in sort of a community mutual aid way, which is really rad. So thanks everyone for donating. We're doing the same thing this week. So please do donate via Super Chat here on YouTube. You can also donate via Venmo at Lee Camp. And all of those donations go back to viewers and listeners, and
So while we wait for the first donation, which we are excited for, whoever wants to jump in there and be first, please do.
Don't be shy. No, what is it they say in game shows? No amount's too little. Or not game shows. What is it called?
Yeah, I don't think that works on game shows.
Oh, what is that word?
Fun drives, the telethons.
Oh.
Telethons.
Oh, okay.
You're like, I was thinking of orgies. Why was I thinking that? No, nothing is too small. Nothing is too small. That's what I was thinking.
But that's not true. Wow, derailed. And I wasn't really on the tracks to begin with over here, but it's been a bit of a long weekend. We moved, and I'm just looped.
Yes, so you might get a bit more loopy
Tony,
show this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for being the first.
I'm assuming that question is for you.
For being the first to donate. Any plans to interview Glenn Greenwald again? He's awesome. He is awesome. He's done some amazing work. I actually don't believe I've ever had him on my show. I think he's just been too busy. I have asked him once or twice. I have chatted with him on Twitter, but I think he does good work. And I don't think I've ever had the honor to have him on my show. But anyway, thank you, Tony.
To answer your question, it's really just the people who email. So it's
called trust. We have trust in our community, trust in those who need. And also,
so far we've actually gotten donations to cover the folks who have emailed. So we haven't had to do a drawing or anything like that. But yeah, there's no, we also, and this is also important for folks who might
Thank you, Jane.
who might be in need, who would like to email. We're not gonna like police how you use the money. We're not gonna ask how you use the money. Like that's not who we are. We're not the charity industrial complex. It's like, well, you must use it for one of these following 5 things. No. Whatever you need it for, whatever those needs are right now, please use it for that. And so anyone is welcome to contact us if there's that need. And yeah, it's not like we don't do a meritocracy, some bullshit that we've come up with. So yeah, it's really just.
Yeah, I mean, part of doing this, part of switching from giving to large organizations to giving to individuals was we didn't want it to be some sort of like challenge. Are you in need enough? Prove to us that you're worthy of the $100. So, it's people who email commoncensored@protonmail.com and say they're in need. And I will read some of the thank yous to you in a bit. But I wanted to start off with the first topic, and we'll get into all of everything we've just been saying. We'll get into it more. But I want to start off with the first topic by reading.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. I guess we can go ahead and deal with this. Demonic Property Management Company. Okay, good. I like it.
Well, I hope you beat them back like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings.
Absolutely. So I wanted to read a paragraph from Chris Hedges' excellent article on recent column on the COVID-19 bill. And because I felt it summed up what, my thoughts on it are very similar to Chris's, and he used better words. So here he goes.
Thanks, G. Birch.
Thank you, G. Birch. The established ruling elites know there is a crisis. They agreed, at least temporarily, to throw money at it with the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 bill known as American Rescue Plan, ARP or ARP, which is also the noise that a small dog makes if you strangle it. And I'm pretty sure that's where they got the name. So Chris continues, but the ARP will not alter the structural inequities, either by raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour or imposing taxes and regulations on corporations or the billionaire class that saw its wealth increase by a staggering $1.1 trillion since the start of the pandemic. That's just the billionaires that have gained $1.1 trillion. The health system will remain privatized, meaning the insurance and pharma corporations will reap a windfall of tens of billions of dollars with ARP, and this when they are already making record profits. The endless wars will continue. The bloated military budget that funds them will continue and will remain sacrosanct. Wall Street and the predatory global speculators that profit from the massive levels of debt peonage imposed on an underpaid working class and loot the U.S. Treasury in our casino capitalism will continue to funnel money upwards in the hands of a tiny oligarchic cabal. So I think Chris Hedges is on the right track there. Yes, there are some things in there that are helpful for people. I don't want them not to happen. It's not like I want, the tax credit that allows people with kids to, feed poor kids. It's not like I want that to be cut. It's that we need far deeper change.
Well, right. And this is kind of like a commentary that, or an argument that's been had a bunch of times, particularly with people, those amongst us who believe that you need like deep systemic change, not just a few things, here and there, a few like tweaks, as it were. These stopgap issues, like for instance, universal health care. Some people say, well, we're not going to fight for universal health care because it would still be under capitalism. True, but you'd save millions of lives, and millions more would be able to thrive for the first time in their lives because they'd have access to the human right of healthcare. So this sort of like treating it like a zero-sum game, or treating it like it's just this binary of like on off, or like, we either have to do this, we have to either topple the entire system or do nothing. That's kind of like a bullshit that doesn't really work in real life. I agree that, signing petitions and like asking for, Nancy Pelosi
Thank you, Chuck.
to give a flying fuck is not a good use of time. But that doesn't mean that anything to do with legislation is not a good use of time, right? So I think that there's some nuance, which I know is something that we talk about a lot on our podcasts and things like that. So, there is some nuance there, but I think, to Chris's point, this is not an example of one of those.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Chuck and Paula. This is not an example of one of those moments where there's actually stopgap measures that can help people thrive in the here and now. This is just more funneling up of life and labor, literally, of people's lives being funneled up to boost the profits of the top 1%, the top 0.1%. So, yeah. Just a little reminder to folks, if you're joining us, we are taking donations for y'all. For our little mutual aid pocket here. And y'all can donate by going to youtube.com/moment of clarity. You can also donate via Rockfin and Venmo at Lee Camp.
Yes, you can donate on Venmo at Lee Camp as well. Thank you so much for those of you who have joined us. Please take a moment to share this video. I see the numbers growing. I see everybody chiming in now, and thank you so much. It's great to hang out with you. We needed it. I need it. I have come to crave our hangouts. So thank you guys so much. And feel free to mention topics you'd like to see discussed, although we have some ready to go. But I thought I'd take a moment to read some of the thank yous from people who benefited from your donations last week. So you guys donated. We were able to help. I think it was 10 people or so, with $100, which made a big difference for them. And so here are some of them. I'm not going to give the person's full name because we haven't asked.
Thanks, Eric.
We haven't asked their permission to do that. So I'll just give first names or something like that. But so this is from Gary. He said, "I wish to let you and Eleanor know I received the donation, and I hope that you all will believe that this will never be forgotten. It came at a time when there was only a few $100s left in my bank account. Sharing this Saturday morning smile and thanking you for all that you do." So that is from Gary, and thank you, Gary, for the email.
And hope you're staying safe.
Here is another one. Unfortunately, I did not write down the first name of the person, but they sent a little angel icon and said, "Thanks for being human."
Oh, we talked about that last week, didn't we?
Oh, did we talk about it last week?
I think we did, because I went off on some long tangent about how this is being human. Right. Mutual aid and mutualism are human. And I'm not going to go on that rant again because I'm too fucking tired. Right. But I believe Bookchin and Kropotkin were mentioned.
Oh, okay. Yes. Now I recall. And can't remember if I mentioned this one last week, but someone said, "You just bought me 2 new tires that were way overdue for replacement." And this is a person whose vehicle is important in the little amount of money they're able to make. And so when the vehicle starts breaking down, and we're seeing this with several of the people, that they basically were looking for the money to be able to continue doing what it is that allows them to make any living. Let's see if I can find a few more. This doesn't seem like all of them. Oh, wow.
Well, either way, it's been really great to hear from folks. And please, if you're in need, then please reach out to us, and please keep donating if you can. Even just a couple of bucks really helps. So,
and someone else was raising money for their friend who was close to homeless in Nicaragua, named Juan, and he's an artist. And with $100, he was able to get $70 of art supplies, which allows him to make a living because he sells his art on the street. And also, with the other $30, he was able to.
Wow! Thank
you, Paul, for peace. And with the other $30, he was able to get food. So, pretty incredible that all of that comes from a little exchange between us. All hanging out with you guys and doing this. So.
Yes. So thank y'all for that. And we'll keep doing this. Thank you, Noli. Thank you. And if y'all have any topics you want us to talk about, granted, my head's been in a cardboard box for the past 4 days, so I don't really know what's going on in the world.
I didn't do it.
But this is something I'm assuming that, you know, most people are not in this situation, but something that mutual aid networks are doing here in DC. I can't speak for other places, but they're putting out asks to folks to redistribute their stimulus checks, if you can call a $1,400 check a stimulus check. They're asking folks to redistribute them if they don't need them or if they don't need all of them. So basically, if folks are in a solid financial place, you know, spread some of that money to the folks who really aren't, because there are a lot. So if you are in one of those situations, you can also reach out to us, and I can help put you in touch with, if you'd like that money to go to local places, you can check out mutualaiddisasterrelief.org. There are lots of mutual aid. They've got a list of mutual aid networks across the country, but you can also throw that money towards this mutual aid work if you like. So just a little heads up on that if you're in need, that could be another place that mutual aid networks are looking at to raise funds.
Thank you, Real Politics.
Thank you.
Is that Danny DeVito in the thumbnail?
I think it is.
Danny DeVito is a lawyer.
He is very what's the word? Noticeable, even as a tiny thumbnail.
If it's not Danny DeVito, then that guy's let himself go. Only Danny DeVito is allowed to look like that. No, thank you, everybody, for donating. It's incredible. So I got another topic here. Texas county has gotten rid of cash bail for minor crimes. We've discussed cash bail before. It should be illegal. It basically is a punishment against the poor. It holds the poor in prison far more so than it holds the rich. Very rarely do they give a bail large enough to keep the rich in jail, in prison, even for things like murder. So that means it only actually keeps the poor in prison. And it really is disgusting. It's only apparently legal or used in 2 countries, the United States and other country I've forgotten. Can you believe that? And thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
And so the fact that cash bail even exists in this country is pathetic. But I wanted to read. Sure, we'll get into that in a moment. I wanted to read some of this article about this. GOP lawmakers want to walk back the fact that they have gotten rid of cash bail. Recent reforms that let more people accused of minor offenses be released without posting cash bail appear to be working, new research shows. But Houston area lawmakers want to roll them back. Eager to resolve a federal civil rights lawsuit, Texas, most populous county, over the past 2 years has stopped requiring most people accused of low-level crimes from putting up cash to get out of jail on bond. Tens of thousands of people accused of misdemeanors, not involving some specific circumstances like domestic abuse or previous bond violations, have been freed without cost while awaiting trial. Letting them out does not appear to increase the chances they will be arrested for new crimes, according to the research. In fact, the percentage of defendants arrested for new crimes within a year of their original arrest went down after the county changed its bail practices. So that should be done across the U.S. immediately.
Yeah, and to Tony's question, alternatives to police and prisons. Wow, I mean, they're manifold, right? Because I think that there are so many. Basically, any way is better. Almost any way is better to deal with issues than police and prisons. And to be honest, the way that you make communities better is to fund them, not put police in those communities. And, poverty is linked to higher rates of police in presence and then higher rates of crime. So these things go hand in hand. Police cause trauma, they cause crime, they cause, I mean, they are the servants and protectors of the ruling elite. And they are occupying forces in a lot of predominantly Black, brown, and indigenous communities across the country. So alternatives to police include, anything just from like funding the basic needs of a community, ensuring that money that the community is putting out in terms of their labor and their life goes back to that community. Another thing is that there are also a few places in the US that have hotlines that are alternatives to the police. So for instance, we donated to one of them a few weeks back. It was the Whitebird Clinic in Eugene, Oregon. And what they do is that they are they're an alternative to the police, where they're just like plainclothes people, jeans and a t-shirt, but there's a trained EMT with them, and there's a trained like social worker that can deal with, mental health issues, that can also provide some basic medical care. And, for the vast majority of shit, they don't need to involve the police at all. It's like, hey, this person's having, a manic episode or something, and we don't need to involve the police with this. We just need someone who has experience dealing with this. And so there are places like that. There are also, mutual aid groups that do offer that as well. There are some organizations that will give a hotline where folks can call to either request help or say that, hey, some shit's going down. There are also cop watch groups that don't really do that, but they are there to witness when cops are called, so that there is a direct connection as well with when cops are being observed, that they're less likely to commit crimes. Not that they don't. I'm just saying it's less likely. This is, of course, one of the things that the Black Panthers really proved, perhaps, for the first time in this country, is when you're standing there watching the cops, they are less likely to be incredibly brutal. So, I mean, there's a long list of alternatives to policing, and I think it's really just a matter of what we can imagine, right? And we can look at what other places have done, from Rojava to the Zapatistas. There are so many examples to what people have done as an alternative to the brutality of policing. And in terms of prisons, I mean, that's also an abolition issue, just like the police are. For folks who are interested, by the way, in the history of policing in this country, I definitely recommend the book Our Enemies in Blue. It's a phenomenal book about the history of policing, but also names a lot of alternatives to policing that could be used, and highlights the point that police have only existed for like a couple hundred years. So the idea that we couldn't live without them is fucking absurd. We, as human beings, lived without them for a really long time. And with prisons, again, it's the same thing. There are so many alternatives to prisons, particularly the way that our prisons are structured now, where you used to have so many people in prison just for being too poor to be out of prison. You have people in prison for having a plant in their pocket. Yeah. And then even when it comes to violent crimes, I think that this is something that is, sometimes it can be uncomfortable for people if they're, survivors of a violent crime in particular. But this issue of what do we do with people so that we're not torturing them in an American prison, but we're also not saying, hey, anything goes, like, feel free to like rape if that's your thing. So talking about what alternatives to prison can look like in a human, in a society that's based on human rights, and based on the ability for people to thrive and survive. What kind of places will we have? What kind of solutions will we have that aren't prisons, but that allow people to be safe and feel safe if there are, if there are still violent crimes? Because I don't actually believe that we can ever live in a place where there's no such thing as violence. I'm a realist.
Yeah. And actually, we have another story about cops. Although I want to do to mention, Brian had a good point on here. I think his name was Brian, that a lot of cops have quotas on how many people they can arrest, how many people they are expected to kind of grab off the streets. And even if they don't have official quotas in a lot of areas, because that's illegal in a lot of areas, they still have kind of unofficial quotas where their boss, their chief, whatever, is looking over their shoulder, seeing if they're making enough arrests, seeing if they're making enough stop and frisks, seeing if they're grabbing enough people of color off the street and putting them in prison, and seeing if they have the cash to pay the bail to actually get out while awaiting trial, which can be years. So those quotas are a really horrific, point of how our system works, even if they are many places unofficial quotas.
Yeah, and Matthew, to your question, you can email commoncensored@protonmail.com. I'll write that here. And if you would like to donate, then you can do that via YouTube, youtube.com/moment of clarity. Just type in, the super chat. There's a little $sign by where you comment. And you can also donate via Rockfin if you're watching there, and via Venmo @LeeCamp. So yeah, so please do throw some money in the hat, as it were, if you have the ability, because all of this money is going back to y'all. It's this little common censored mutual aid bucket.
Our little mutual aid society we're creating. Thank you guys all for the comments. Thank you for being here and for sharing this. Many hundreds of you are watching right now, and we'd love to increase that number. So please take a moment to tweet this out, or let people know, or email a friend who you think would like it to join in here. I can get into another topic that I thought maybe we'd like to mention, which is Derek Chauvin's trial is beginning, the man who killed George Floyd. And the jury selection has begun for Derek Chauvin. This is from BuzzFeed, which is normally a garbage outlet. Never ever read anything on BuzzFeed, but because this was a kind of mainstream story, I thought that we could get the basics from BuzzFeed. Jury selection for Derek Chauvin, who is charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter, is expected to start Monday, a day before jury selection in the murder trial of Chauvin, the former police officer accused of killing George Floyd. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Minneapolis calling for justice and police reform. Hundreds of people marched Sunday from the county government center through downtown Minneapolis, at one point stopping at an intersection to read the names of more than 400 people killed by police in the state of Minnesota. Organizers for the event, which was called I Can't Breathe, Silent March for Justice, asked people to wear black and bring flowers and signs. And it is great to see people...
I'm sorry.
It is great to see people, standing up and protesting on this. I unfortunately have to, on this BuzzFeed article, be the buzzkill, to remind everyone that the odds of a cop getting actually convicted of murder are almost zero. Some are convicted of lighter crimes, and then they'll serve either a few months or almost nothing. Maybe they'll serve house arrest or something on these lighter crimes for murdering someone. But there have been, I believe, 3 officers in the past 15 years convicted of murdering someone. Out of thousands, we're talking 12 to 1,500 police murders a year in America. And so multiply that times 15 years, and 3 have been arrested and charged and actually convicted of murder. Incredibly rare. This may be a case where it happens simply because the George Floyd protests have become so massive. But even if it does happen, this will still be a tiny, tiny sample size of the actual, the number of cops that get arrested for the murdering they do is minuscule.
What is that called? Qualified immunity?
Yeah.
The idea that it's your job basically to to be ready to kill people. So you couldn't possibly be tried and convicted for killing someone. That would be ridiculous. You're just being convicted of doing your job. So yeah, it's basically the bullshit reality of police in the United States is that since their job is to, again, serve and protect the ruling class, they would very rarely get convicted for oppressing anybody but the ruling class, right? They're not going to be tried and convicted for oppressing us. That's literally their job. That's why they exist. So yeah, it's and somebody mentioned that that Unicorn Riot is covering this story well. Unicorn Riot does great work, so so that's definitely a trusted source. So yeah, if they're doing if they're covering it, then that's a good place to look. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But as per usual, I will be more interested. Thank you, Thank
you, ADT.
ADT. Well, there you go. Thanks, Tony.
I liked what I just had to say about ARP.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I can't remember.
Thank you, Tony.
What I was gonna say.
Thank you, Zavi. Yeah, the problem is people say that with every one of these situations. They always go, this time we're not backing down.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting question, not to like toot my own horn here or anything, but if y'all are interested in hearing this question kind of get bandied around, you could check out my podcast with Carla Bergman. It's called Silver Threads. And one of the questions that we ask our guests who are long-term radicals is, why haven't we scaled over? Like, why haven't we won the day? Like that. I don't usually use like winning, but why haven't things changed significantly? And the responses have really been brilliant. And the most recent one is such a beautiful podcast. I definitely recommend that folks listen to it. It's with former Black Panther and member of the Black Liberation Army, Ashanti Alston. And it's just a fucking radical conversation with him. He is brilliant.
Thank you, Progressive Lefty.
And thanks, Progressive Lefty. And so I definitely recommend that if you're looking for more kind of conversational ideas about that particular question, which is, it's a difficult one to answer, and it's an uncomfortable one to answer, but it is one that I think a lot of folks are banding around in their heads and banding around in mutual aid groups and community groups and things like that. So yeah, check that out. Silver Threads podcast. It's up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. And if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I've tweeted it out as well.
Absolutely. You should check out that podcast. By the way, for those of you who like podcasts, you could probably listen to a new podcast by one of us every day of the week. My podcast, Moment of Clarity, which has the audio from Redacted Tonight and Moment of Clarity and everything, that's actually now 2 days a week. So you have that Moment of Clarity free on podcast networks. You have Eleanor's Act Out, which you can grab. You have the one we do together, Common Censored. This is Common Censored Livestream. You have Silver Threads that Eleanor does with Carla Bergman. And you have Government Secrets that I do with Graham Elwood. So you could have a full week every week of our podcasts
if you
could handle it. So what else? What do people want to talk about? Feel free to throw some topics in there, some ideas. What is going on in the news that you'd like to hit on?
I'm sharing the name of the podcast again. Wow, I can't spell. Whew.
Not Silver Threads. That's something else. That's actually a pretty interesting podcast.
Yeah, so it's Silver Threads podcast. The most recent episode was with Ashanti Alston. Really quite rad. So yeah. Cool. So what do y'all feel like talking about?
What about the idea of housing for all? I just did a redacted tonight on that. I absolutely think there should be housing for all. Let's see, where is that comment? I absolutely think there should be housing for all, not to mention the fact that we have empty houses and not just houses, but apartments, everything, housing spaces, littering the landscape. We could give everyone housing.
Thanks, Bev.
And some people, thank you, Bev. And some people wanted to point out on, because I did a whole opening on Redacted tonight. We're talking 15 minutes on how simple it'd be to give everyone housing. And some people wanted to point out that, well, there's a lot of homeless people that have mental issues and whatnot. So just giving them a house or just giving them a roof over there is not the only part of the answer. And I'm like, yeah, it's not the only part of the answer. I can't give all of the answers at once. I went through this part of the answer. Absolutely, they should get mental health care as well, because in most countries, you just get mental health care. That would just be a thing that the country provides. Here, it's like, oh, we should create some program in which people with mental health problems get mental health care.
David.
It's like, fucking of course. Yes, that too.
Yeah.
I love when I try and give an answer to something and people are like, well, that doesn't solve the problem of where they're going to get ice cream when they want ice cream.
Well, look, I mean, the issue, those people are just trying to yell at you for something, because guess what? There is nothing that solves all of the problems. There is nothing that is just like a cure-all.
Except
totally
ending capitalism.
Well, but even then, you have to make sure that you're not building something out of the ashes that is just as bad or worse.
I know. It was a joke.
There is literally nothing that is a cure-all. I'm sorry. It sucks. And again, like with the stopgap thing that we talked about earlier, this issue of like, there are things that you can and should fight for and do, even though it's not going to solve all the problems or like even like end capitalism. But yeah, we should make housing a human right. We should make healthcare a human right, because it inherently is. So we shouldn't just say, well, at some point down the road, like hundreds of years from now, when most of us are dead, there will be housing for all, because we'll all just live in trees again and that'll be great. Like, no, you can fucking do this shit now. We can work on this shit now. It is worth working for. And so, yeah, like the nuance, y'all, is important.
I'm assuming Jerry's comment was sarcastic.
I mean, this is an important issue. You know, there are
a lot of bombs to drop. I mean,
a lot of bombs to drop.
We can't house people because we got bombs to drop.
Funny enough, I was just re-listening to George Carlin yesterday or the day before or whatever day, and from the early 90s, he's talking about the first Gulf War, and he's talking about like how we have important shit to do. We have to bomb the brown people. That's just what America does. That is our job. And we're really good at it. And
we are really good at it. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember what album that's off of, but it's fucking wonderful.
So if we can get $75 or more donations, we will stay till 9 p.m. Eastern. Not 9 p.m. in all your crazy time zones. We're talking the real time zone.
Well, hey, some people are way more hardcore. I saw somebody who was like watching from Germany, which that's late.
That is late. Thank you for staying up with us. Yeah, so if we get $75, all the donations are given to those in need, people in need. So it is a good cause. And like I said, we will keep. Thank you. ADT just put in 20. So we only got 55 left.
Yay, thank you. Mine doesn't show up as yours. You're way ahead.
Plus, also, you don't get to see the pear.
Yeah, I don't see the pear, but your orange is also way nicer than mine. That's like a puke. That's like a newborn baby diarrhea yellow. Yours is like a really nice orange. My color scheme is crap, y'all.
Now, was that on the crayons? Does it say newborn baby diarrhea yellow? Or
that's just not fair. Thank you.
Oh my
Judith.
God, do you remember how racist the old crayons used to be? When I was growing up, the crayon, you'd get the 64 pack, and
thank you, DID.
And the red one would say like Indian or something.
What?
Yeah.
No.
And the basically the white, like the color of my skin, that color pinkish or something, would say flesh.
Oh, I do know that. This was. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret.
I didn't realize that. Holy shit, that they would call it Indian. That's awful. But I do remember that back in my modeling days,
we're at 55.
there would often be like an issue with, they'd say like, bring nude colored, underwear, or bring, a nude colored whatever. And we're going
Thank you,
to,
Tony.
we're going to shoot this with nude colored whatever. And it's like, but what does nude mean? It depends on what your skin color is. You can't just say to a stylist, bring nude this, because it's not the same for everybody. And there were several,
Thank you, Ross.
there were a few times where that got kind of awkward, and it was like, we need to fucking come up with a better name for this.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear, Ross, that you were attacked and permanently injured. That's
yes,
pretty
I'm
horrific.
so sorry, and I hope that you have a good support system. And as we like to say, ACAB, all cops are bastards.
Coolio, thank you for the donation.
Thank you.
We're getting close. I think we're about $10 short. But anyway, we there's plenty of time left. Yeah, I don't know what got me off on the racist crayons, but anyway.
I don't either. Thank you, Jim. I also am amazed that instead of writing fucking, you put a bunch of little.
That was nice. And for the children.
I know
children.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying I'm impressed.
I know a lot of parents that'll play our live stream for like kids' birthday parties and stuff. So I understand where Jim's coming from. You got to worry about the kids. You
do. Yes. Agreed.
Because our Congress is filled with sociopaths. That's why.
That's how they get there, is they're sociopaths.
That's how they win.
Oh, Super Chat won't accept some words? Really?
Yeah, and actually I have to approve them. So a lot of certain comments will get held up basically because they have the word fuck or something, or they have the word Israel, and I have to hit approve.
So if I wrote fuck Israel, would YouTube just like spontaneously combust?
You'd be arrested instantly. Like there's guys waiting outside for. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Progressive Lefty.
Thank you, Progressive Lefty. Thank you, Steven. Dave says we're censored by bots.
Yeah, well. What were we talking about before you got off on racist crayons?
Pair characters. And diarrhea, baby diarrhea.
Yeah, I'm not liking the color scheme here. The color scheme on mine is not as nice as the color scheme on yours. Why did I get this shitty color scheme?
Well, you didn't impress the StreamYard gods, I guess.
Well, so did we get to 75?
I think we're close. I think we're within a couple of bucks. So
okay.
So they might get to the full hangout till
cool.
Till 9
Well,
PM.
let us know.
The unlimited hangout, not the limited hangout.
Thank you, Tony. Since we're hanging out, what do y'all want to talk about?
Yeah, throw it out there. I do have one more topic I can read here that I wanted to get to y'all. Bayer, there's a class action lawsuit against Bayer, and this is from U.S. Right to Know. The settlement plan has drawn widespread outrage and opposition. Thank you, Chris.
East Charlotte. Hello.
More than 90 law firms and more than 160 lawyers have notified a federal court judge overseeing U.S. Roundup litigation, Roundup the herbicide, that they oppose Monsanto's owner, Bayer, $2 billion plan to settle future claims the company expects to be brought by people diagnosed with cancer blamed on the use of Monsanto's herbicide products. So Bayer is trying to get a preemptive settlement, as in we know a lot of people are going to keep coming forward with cancer that we caused with Roundup herbicide, and we're going to give $2 billion to deal with all of them, no matter how many come forward. To continue from the article, in recent days, 9 separate objections to the plan and 4 amicus briefs have been filed, letting the judge know the extent of opposition to the proposed class settlement. On Monday, the National Trial Lawyers joined the opposition on behalf of its 14,000 members. The group said in their filing with the court that they agree with the opposition that the proposed settlement seriously endangers access to justice for millions of people in the proposed class would prevent Monsanto's victims from holding it accountable and would reward Monsanto in numerous respects. So you guys probably know, but I and many others have been doing videos on Monsanto's Roundup herbicide for years, saying, look, the studies have shown, the science has shown, the WHO agrees that it is cancerous, like heavily cancerous. And they fought it and got our government to back down and not regulate it. And they were spraying this shit, and to some degree still are, fucking everywhere. And finally, they're having to make some payouts to some people, but it's understandable that $2 billion is not going to cut it. I mean, how many people are going to come forward in the future with cancer or lost loved ones because of this fucking herbicide and the way they basically owned our government and therefore told them not to regulate Monsanto?
Yeah, no, it's fucking disgusting. And it's reminiscent of something that we talked about last week. I can't remember if that was on the podcast or on the live stream, but how, I think it was on the podcast, how Pfizer basically demanded in South America that these countries that these countries, I want to highlight this.
I got it.
That countries.
We should just give you a taser. You can be ready.
That Pfizer demanded that countries sign an indemnity clause that basically said that even if Pfizer engages in malice against these countries vis-a-vis the vaccine or other medical aid, they can't be sued. So literally, like, Pfizer can go out and try to kill people, and then they already have, they're basically cleared, because that's the only way that these countries can get access to the Pfizer vaccine, is if they sign this stupid fucking clause. And if you want to hear more about that, do check out our podcast from last week. The Grateful Steve. This is a really good question. This is something that I talked about several years back, Nick, actually.
Where you been, man? What's your deal? Showing up late. Unacceptable.
Not gonna lie, what the fuck? Where the pair of characters? But yeah, so I covered this on Act Out and talked to some folks who are with a national organization of what do you call it? I can't remember the name of the organization, but I will try to come up with it. Or hey, if anybody knows this, this it's like the war, like
War Tax Resistors.
Yes, thank you. The War Tax Resistors. And they basically, they're an organization of folks who refuse to pay taxes because of the military-industrial complex and because of the imperialist nature of the United States. And they have a great organization that you can go to their website and check out. They've got like a frequently asked questions. You can look into what it's all about. I will say this: it's an important thing to just highlight. I was going to be a war tax resistor, and then Medicaid messaged me, and they were like, "Oh, you're not going to pay taxes? Okay, well, we'll hold your medical care." And at the time, I was undergoing cancer treatments, and so I was like, "Well, I guess this is not something that's going to happen." So just be aware that the government can come at you with some shit that it's super fucked up, of course, that you're paying money for war while you're having to pay money to access healthcare that could easily be paid for instead of bombing people. It's just like a little circle of death. But just know that there are some things to consider before you just go ahead and refuse to pay taxes. So right. Do check out their information, and I'll try to see if I can find their website. But yeah.
Yeah, there are some things to consider. The other thing that bothers me is I don't think it would change much unless you literally had millions doing it. I think a few people not paying their taxes is not actually change our system. And so that's why I'm not saying don't do it, but it's not something I run around and be like, come on, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of feel similar to the whole, vote with your wallet thing. It's not that I think you should send money to Amazon and Nike and shit and McDonald's, but I don't think you're going to get millions of people to stop, using all of the evil corporations, which is almost all of them. And so it's like, Please do vote with your wallet. But I'm not going to run around doing show after show about how that's the answer.
Right. And I just put wow, and I put no, that's spelled right. Okay. Whew, sorry, y'all. So the National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee is at nwtrcc.org. And again, I totally agree with what Lee just said. This is, not something that is going to save the day. But there's not one thing that's going to save the day. And I think that this could be a good option if that's something, especially if you have a lot of money to withhold. And you have the ability and the interest in making it a hill that you battle on. But again, I think that it's important that when we talk about the diversity of tactics, I think that it's important that we not just recognize that different people use different tactics, but that we should all use different tactics, right? We shouldn't say that I'm the direct action person, I'm the lockdown person, that's all I ever do. Well, okay, but that is going to get rough and scary and draining as fuck. So there should really be diversification in all of our tactics, if you're if you're up in the trees, do ground support sometimes, this sort of, there should be that diversity, and where we also feel that we can share roles so that we don't feel that we're always holding down. Thank you, Omar. That we're always holding down the same role and the same tactic, because that will also get stale. Yes. That will also get stale and stop us from bringing in new ideas to those tactics, or throwing those tactics away when they're not serving us or our communities anymore. So definitely think that diversity of tactics is important, not just in communities, but in ourselves as well. So, yeah.
Let's see. I just want to throw this out there while we have a second. Many of you have asked, what's going on with our Patreon. I told you about it on the last podcast. Our Patreon has been fucking destroyed by Patreon because they're a giant bag of twats. And it actually says that in their mission statement.
That's a sub-headline.
And I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if it's because of things I'm saying. I did hear what they just banned or suspended Whitney Webb's account for things she was saying, which, pretty crazy. But whether it is or not, what's happened is they've decreased the amount of revenue from our Patreon by 75%. So most of it. And therefore, we have switched to LiberaPay. LIBERAPAY.com/LeeCamp. And so we'd love for you to go over there and join at just like a very low level. We're not asking for anybody to hurt their bank account or anything. We don't want you struggling. But if everybody were to throw in like $1 a week, then it funds our podcast and everything else. So liberapay.com/LeeCamp, LIBERA pay. pay.com/LeeCamp, and read the description there with the levels and stuff. But yeah, and they don't take anything. LiberaPay, they charge a little fraction for processing, but they don't take a percentage, unlike Patreon, which takes a pretty large percentage. And as I'm saying, fucks people over. So Patreon can go stick their head up a bull's ass, and we're going to switch to LiberaPay. So.
Yes, and to answer the question why we're not doing this on Rockfin, we are streaming on Rockfin. If the question is why aren't we only doing this on Rockfin, that's because unfortunately most folks don't know about Rockfin. So doing it on Rockfin would be kind of like yelling into an anechoic chamber.
Well, so that's part of it. Another thing is that the way StreamYard works, we stream through our channels with StreamYard. They can't highlight Rockfin comments. So if you comment on Rockfin or leave a tip on Rockfin, I can't highlight it on the screen. Thanks, which is kind of part of this show. So there's another reason. And yeah, we'd have to walk away from all of the YouTube, which we spent years building up. So there's reason 3. So it is up on Rockfin. We just can't highlight your comments on Rockfin.
We got some folks watching on Rockfin, so sweet.
Thank you guys for watching on Rockfin. Shout out to the Rockfin. Yeah, man. So we got 7 minutes left. What would you like to cover in that time?
Thanks, Bev.
And it's your last chance to donate to those in need.
Yes, please.
Let's see. A lot of people liking Rockfin. I'm glad to hear you're into it. They seem to be growing. They do not have the censorship problems that YouTube has, to say the least. I mean, YouTube is owned by Google, and we know what Google is. Google is a U.S. government entity at this point, because corporations own our government, so therefore they're kind of one and the same. So they have realized that we, not just meaning me and Eleanor, but anybody talking outside of the corporate allowable talking points is a threat to the system. For a long while, they thought, oh, the internet's growing. It's okay. Let those people say those things that we don't want them saying. No one's really listening. They're not on NBC News. It doesn't matter. And then it started to fucking matter. Donald Trump blew up, Bernie Sanders blew up, Occupy blew up, Black Lives Matter blew up, and all these things at once. And they were like, holy flying fuckballs. Turns out people do but learn things on the internet, and now they're shutting it all down. People are banned from YouTube, demonetized from YouTube, banned from fucking Facebook, Twitter, Patreon now. They're going after one after another. So Rockfin, at least for now, is a separate world that is free of that for the moment.
Saw a few people asking about Yemen. It is something that should continuously be brought up. So yes, good call on writing that in the comments. I haven't.
But Biden said he was going to stop our war in Yemen.
I haven't read up on the most recent shit going on there, but I can definitely recommend mintpressnews.com. They do phenomenal reporting on Yemen, and they really have kept their finger on the pulse and kept this in the headlines. And, you know, is one of the alternative media outlets that's really kept reporting on it as it's, you know, disappeared. I mean, it never appeared on corporate media, but yeah, very important to keep that discussion going. But do check out mintpressnews.com if you're looking for updates, as I don't have any.
Well, my only updates on Yemen is that Biden said we were going to stop, the U.S. government was going to stop supporting the offensive measures in the war on Yemen. And that raises a lot of questions that the mainstream media didn't want to ask, such as, do the blockades count as offensive measures? Because the blockades are the number one thing killing people in Yemen. They can't get food, they can't get water, they can't get medicines. So the famine and the horrors in Yemen are to a large degree caused by the blockade, which Biden and his goons may consider not offensive measures. Secondly, we are still selling arms in a large way to our ally, Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Those arms are used to kill people in Yemen. So my analogy was, it's like saying to your friend who's a murderer and killing a lot of people, hey, Danny, stop murdering everybody, but I'm going to keep selling you guns.
Right.
Are you really telling him to stop if you're going to keep giving him guns?
But this is the difference between Democrats and Republicans, right? Democrats are like, oh, well, we really care about human rights. It's a very important issue for us, while they're selling like huge weapons to Saudi Arabia, while they're being like, yeah, no, human rights is a super important issue to us, and we're going to do everything that we can. The Republicans are just straight up honest. They're like, no, we don't fucking care. We're absolutely, yes, we need to sell weapons because America. The Democrats are far more conniving and insidious. So I think it's that this is just par for the course. This is just what the Dems do.
Yes, indeed. Tony donated and asked said we should talk about the companies that are still using prison labor in this country.
Oh yeah.
And I have done that before, covered some of those companies. It is tough to get an ongoing list, because they try and keep it secret. Every once in a while, you'll see some good investigative journalism on it. And then those companies will often stop using the prison labor because it became a mainstream media thing. I know Victoria's Secret, for example, was one of the big ones, and they stopped, I think, But maybe that just means they hit it better. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of companies that use prison labor. The prisoners are often getting paid, meaning like 5 cents an hour or $1, max $1 an hour, more like 10 cents an hour or something. And sometimes the prison labor is to sew a made in America label on something that was made in Bangladesh. Like, because the label was made in America and sewn on by a prisoner for almost no pay, that counts as made in America.
America. Yeah, no, that is a good issue to discuss. And there's what's that documentary called that talked about slave labor? 13th.
Oh.
That's a good one that talks about how slavery is still actually legal in the United States under the 13th Amendment, because it says slavery is abolished except in the cases of crime, which means that according to their bullshit law, they can still use slavery in prisons, which they do.
Yes, indeed. So. Hey, folks, that's the show. Thanks for joining us. If you want to donate, if you're watching this later and you still want to donate, you can donate at Venmo at Lee Camp. Thank you, Nick. That Venmo name again is at Lee Camp.
Peer-reviewed. That's funny.
A peer-reviewed paper.
Thank you, Nick. I needed that, being as exhausted as I am. Appreciate it, and appreciate all of you. I'm interrupting your goodbye. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I appreciate the appreciation.
Appreciate all of you who came and hang out with.
I'll do it. So thank you. But if you're watching this later and you still want to give, you can Venmo at Lee Camp, and all those donations will also go to people in need. So we will let you know. And if you are someone in need who needs a little help, and we're just talking up to $100, then email commoncensored@protonmail.com.
I get by with a little help from my
Exactly. One other note is our Patreon is bordering on dead. So please, it would be awesome
if you could resuscitate.
If you could go join liberapay.com/LeeCamp, liberapay.com/LeeCamp. Join it like even just $1 a week, and it'll help keep our podcast going. And the last thing was, someone mentioned that they hadn't heard about all our podcasts, so I will reel them off again. We got Common Censored that we do together. We have Act Out. So when I say when only you do, then you cover my face.
Okay.
We have Act Out. That is Eleanor Goldfield. We have Silver Threads. That is Eleanor and Carla Bergman. We have Government Secrets. That's Lee Camp and Graham Elwood. And we have Moment of Clarity. That's just my redacted shit, my Moment of Clarity shit. So all of those are free.
The visual aid was helpful, wasn't it, folks?
Most of them come out almost every week, so you could get tons of podcasts for your $1. It's always going to be worth your money because they're free. So,
so thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. Thank you so much for donating, and stay safe out there. Stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
Keep fighting.
Act Out.